like clock. I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Boruto chapter 44 review. Alright guys, this right here is absolutely insane. We never really expected anything like this. To be honest, coming into this chapter, I thought to myself like, hey, if we didn't see a Kashin Koji versus Jigen fight in this chapter would definitely be an L. Come to find out, we did see a Kashin Koji versus Jigen fight, and the chapter was still a W. Like, the Boruto manga just does not miss. Now, of course, the big story in this chapter was Amado coming to the Hidden Leaf Village. This took us all by complete surprise. We had no idea that this is gonna happen. The spoilers didn't even talk about this happening. Now, at the end of the chapter, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what Amado was actually doing, we have to understand what he did say to Naruto, Shikidai, and everybody else that was listening. He said that he wanted to defect to the Konoha village, pretty much meaning that he wants to abandon the Kado organization and join the Hidden Leaf. Now, that right there off the rip was extremely surprising, man, because we thought the Kado organization was going to be a very big organization that we were probably going to have to fear for a lot in a large majority of the Boruto anime and the Boruto manga, just the Boruto series in general. But it seems like the Kado organization is breaking up, and it makes sense a little bit, man, because the leader of the Kado organization is supposedly going to be assassinated by a professional assassin, and Kashin Koji Delta is pretty much out cold. But I just believe it's too good to be true. Let's analyze exactly what Amado actually did. And he came in like an absolute boss. First of all, he pulled up on Ino-Shika-Cho. When I seen Ino-Shika-Cho in the manga, I understood that something was gonna go wrong with that team, man, because the Boruto manga, they don't waste any time. The Boruto anime might cut to Ino-Shika-Cho just for a fun and happy training session, but the manga wouldn't do anything like that. Amado pulls up at first pretty much playing games, and we understand the character development in the Boruto manga is not necessarily anything too crazy, but we did get a sense of Amado's personality in this chapter, and he's a very funny guy. So he pulls up, asks him for a lighter for his cigarette because he left his lighter in the Kado hideout, asks him for a lighter, and then pretty much gets to work. Shikidai was on go from the rip. He puts Amado in a shadow possession jutsu, then Amado pretty much breaks that with a sound jutsu, possibly coming from a scientific technology that pretty much took control over Shikidai's shadow possession jutsu. Now afterwards, Amado did something insane. Like, first of all, we didn't even really see his movements. It's kind of implied that Amado is fast, but we didn't really get to see it. Of course, it's panel by panel. He pulls up to Shikidai, ties him up without us even seeing it, and has two tiny needles on his gloves, and then pretty much injects Shikidai, and now Shikidai is out cold. He puts a bomb around Shikidai's neck. At this point, I'm going crazy. Ino-Shika and Chocho at this point looks completely useless, and now Amado is demanding to speak to Shikamaru. Just the entrance already had me gain so much respect for Amado. A lot of people automatically thought that he was just going to be some regular scientist. A lot of people thought that he was going to be fodder, but it seems like he's with the shit as well. It's a very good possibility that he pretty much made himself out of scientific technology as well. In this chapter though, we see Mitsuki and Sasuke talking very much in depth about what we have been talking about, not just on my channel, but all across YouTube and all across Twitter and also all across Reddit. A lot of people understood and uncovered a lot of the information about the Karma Seal that Sasuke and Mitsuki were talking about in this chapter. What they understood is that the Karma Seal can possibly be a direct link to the Otsutsuki member, in which they can possibly resurrect themselves into the future. They already understood that with Boruto, and because of that, it led them to ask the same question about Kawaki. Now, during that question, Sasuke automatically thought towards Jigen, but then Sasuke also thought, hey, Jigen might also be a vessel as well. And we've been talking about that for a very long time, how Jigen might have also been taken over by Isshiki Otsutsuki. It's pretty much damn near confirmed at this point, but a couple chapters ago, we had no idea about this until Isshiki actually took over Jigen's body, and then a lot of the YouTubers and a lot of the people on Twitter and a lot of people on Reddit had that same theory, and for Sasuke to be having that same theory as well, it's like all of our ideas are actually being validated. Now, I do want to point this out. There is a certain level of skepticism between Mitsuki and Sasuke. They don't really know everything that's going on, but because they did actually speak about what we were speaking about, it pretty much lends credence to the fact that, hey, we are not crazy. Now, they spoke about the possibility of Momoshiki taking over Boruto's body and using it as a vessel. Sasuke even questioned the reason why Momoshiki gave such power to Boruto in the first place, and a lot of you guys out there, just like Sasuke, are believing that, hey, maybe Momoshiki eventually wants to take over Boruto's body and pretty much use him as a vessel for the resurrection of Momoshiki. And I do want to give you guys claps to that. Now, something very interesting came from Mitsuki in this chapter. He pretty much said that Boruto has absolutely no idea, and Boruto being Boruto, he's not necessarily the brightest of kids. Of course, straight A's in the academy school, but when we talk about street smarts, Boruto isn't necessarily up there in intelligence. So it's not necessarily a surprise to me that Boruto doesn't really know Boruto and understand what's really going on. But I really like how they pointed out and emphasized that Mitsuki was being extremely analytical and observant during the whole thing. It's like Mitsuki was the only person that was there that had a very good idea and grasped what was really going on in terms of Boruto's karma seal and everything else. But even Kawaki, I don't even think that Kawaki really and fully understood what happened to Boruto, and they didn't necessarily talk about that amongst themselves. Of course, they pretty much commented on it, but they didn't really have an in-depth conversation like what Mitsuki and Sasuke was doing in this particular chapter. Another thing that's super interesting that I did talk about earlier in this month was if Boruto's eye dojutsu that we did see when he was taken over by Momoshiki from the karma seal, if it was a Byakugan or a dojutsu. Now, two damning evidences came out that pretty much suggest that it is actually a Byakugan. The first bit of evidence being is the cover art. In the cover art, we've seen Boruto in his Momoshiki form with his Byakugan or Jougan out. Now, at that particular point, it looks directly and exactly like a Byakugan. It does not have the black scarlet around the pupils, and that right there basically means that, hey, this right here is a Byakugan. But because we have already went over the fact that the Boruto anime and the Boruto manga might have different drawing styles, this can possibly still mean that this is actually a Jougan and it's just different art. But that likelihood is extremely dwindling, mainly because it looks exactly like a Byakugan. Now, the other damning part about this in this chapter that we did see is, of course, Sada calling it a Byakugan. Now, Sada has seen the Byakugan. She knows what a Byakugan looks like. She didn't really say it looked weird or anything. So that right there pretty much leads a lot of people to believe that, hey, this right here is most likely going to be a Byakugan. And as I said, this right here is definitely damning evidence that this can possibly be a Byakugan. But the reason why I do want you guys to take that with a grain of salt is because Sada did not necessarily analyze Boruto's dojutsu in terms of the Jougan all that much. Like, if she did see it, she probably seen a tiny clip of it. I would have been much more confident if Mitsuki would have said that it was a Byakugan and not Sada, mainly because Mitsuki seen Boruto's dojutsu or Jougan on multiple occasions. Mitsuki seen it when he saved Boruto's life, I believe back in like episode 7 or 8, and he also seen it during the fight versus Sumire in the Nue, and also seen it again when they were in the different dimension, in the Nue's dimension. Mitsuki seen Boruto's Jougan a lot, so if Mitsuki would have said like, hey, that was a Byakugan and not the thing that I seen Boruto have in his eye a lot early in the Boruto series and in the Boruto anime, that right there would have gave it a lot more credence. But because Sada didn't really see Boruto's Jougan in depth like that, we still do have to take that with a grain of salt. Because of this chapter, I think it's more likely that that's a Byakugan, and when Momoshiki does take over Boruto's body, it turns into a Byakugan, mainly because that's the dojutsu that Momoshiki did have. And when Boruto does gain full control of his Jougan, then instead of the Byakugan, then we'll start to see the Jougan like we did see at the beginning of the Boruto series at episode 1 when he did fight off against Kawaki. Another great thing that I did see in this chapter, and of course this is completely unrelated to a lot of things that I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are probably excited about, but we've seen Sumire in this chapter. Now, of course, we haven't really got to see Sumire in the anime a lot recently, and of course in the manga a lot recently. The last time that we did see Sumire in the manga is back around the time when they did fight off against Ao. This is pretty much right before that, when they did go to figure out what the blimp was. Turns out the blimp was actually carrying Kawaki, but that was just a long time ago. And in this chapter, seeing her was definitely a very good sight to see. I think she was in this chapter mainly because they understood that there would be a lot, and I mean a lot, of downtime in this chapter. Because it is the chapter after a very action-packed chapter, we understood that this chapter is going to be flooded with a whole bunch of information and not a lot of action. Even though Sumire didn't really get a lot of speaking parts, her being in the chapter was definitely just a very good addition. Naruto actually woke up, and this was definitely a surprise to Amado, mainly because he understood that Naruto went up against Jigen. A lot of people in the Kado organization have a lot of respect for Jigen, and automatically he understood that if he did go up against Jigen, he would have most likely won that fight. And he's correct, but it turned out that Sasuke was also there as well. But there definitely was a question at the end of the last chapter of if Naruto was actually going to wake up, and I made a video about this, and I spoke about how that's just definitely not in the Boruto writer's tendencies. Naruto is definitely going to wake up in this chapter, and he absolutely did. It seems that he made a 100% recovery, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are happy for that. But of course, I do want to know what you guys think about this chapter in the comment section below. In my opinion, it was an absolute banger. It didn't really have a lot of action, but in terms of information and furthering the plot, it was potentially one of the best chapters of Boruto that we did see with lack of action. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below, and give me your opinion on the multitude of things that we did see in this chapter. Do you guys think that Amado is working with an ulterior motive? Do you guys think that Boruto's dojutsu was a Jougan sort of Byakugan battle, because in this chapter it seems like it really was a Byakugan. And give me your opinions about what you guys think Boruto's future is in regards to the Karma Seal. Do you guys think that Momoshiki is going to take over Boruto's body? And do you guys think that what Mitsuki and Sasuke were talking about was absolutely spot on? Let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.